Wife met up with guy that has expressed feelings for her then lied for a while about it. Do I leave? I had just got out of the army and started doing contract security work for 30 days on and 15 off. My wife was living in a house given to us by her mom and I in GA, and I was working in TX and driving back to GA at the end of every rotation. We kept the communication going well. At first I would call to wake her up for work and we would talk while drinking coffee over FaceTime getting ready for the day, and she would call and talk to me about her day on her way home from work. We never missed a call. During one of my rotations I started noticing slight differences in our communication patterns. When I would call some mornings she wouldn't answer until she was already in her car and on the way to work and was too stressed out to talk to me for long. Following that was the evening conversations. For instance, the calls would be made from her right as she got off and the day was just too stressful and she needed to listen to music on the way home and would offer to call me when she got home and unwound. I was cool with it because we just went through a big move and I figured she might be overwhelmed with everything going on with her new job and family, etc. So I was trying to be as patient and understanding as possible while still attempting to keep the communication flowing. Until those calls when she got home never happened, and then I wouldn't get a call until the next morning on her way to work, with the same cycle of I fell asleep when I got home and overslept. I've been so exhausted from work. This went on for a week before the incident with this guy. Slight rewind before I get into the situation with this dude. While we were still living together at the base I was stationed at before moving to GA, I overheard what I perceived as a flirty conversation with this guy from our hometown at midnight while she thought I was asleep because I had a big brief the next morning very early. I didn't handle it the best, I'll admit. I felt like something was going on, and she eventually ended up convincing me after I talked to the guy that they didn't look at each other like that and just had a good friendship and hadn't been in touch in a while. We both agreed that if she were in my shoes at the time she wouldn't have appreciated it either and it would not be a problem anymore. I was okay with it, slightly still miffed about it, but was able to move on and trust that she was honest to me about it. A few weeks later we went on leave and went back to our hometown in GA to see family before I went on my final and ugliest deployment. While in GA we went to our favorite taco spot and she recognized him and informed me that was him, and I said, "Good, let's say hey." I was friendly to the guy, shook his hand firmly and looked him in the eyes before she says, "Hey stranger," and gives him a big hug. The way he looked at her after this, I could tell he looked at her as more than a friend. I addressed these concerns and she reassured me he may look at her like that, but she does not view him the same way. I swallowed it and told her I trust you, and I did, so I brushed it off. Now back up to speed to the rotation where I noticed the communication changes. I started addressing the shift in communication I had noticed along with the location services we both used for assurance to start out of nowhere not work properly. I had begun to convince myself I was going crazy and reading too deep into it, and leaned on how tough my last deployment was on me mentally and blamed that, and even told her I blamed the deployment and asked her to be patient with me and give me a little reassurance when she could to keep my crazies at bay. The conversations on her end were always, "I understand, I'm sorry, I'll do better at talking with you more," etc. She didn't work Friday through Sunday, and that Friday morning after going through this spotty communication for a week she calls to say she's going to be hanging out with her mom and aunt all day and won't be around her phone much. I responded with positivity, happy at the fact she was getting to do something she enjoyed after a rough week, and told her to have fun, send money to enjoy herself with, and to call me once she gets to the house. Then that Friday evening around 6 p.m. she calls me and informs me the guy that she was on the phone with late that night, before GA while we were still in the army, ran into her while she was out and asked her if she wanted to go grab a bite to eat since they had not seen each other in a while. She was checking in with me before she gave him an answer and even told him, "I want to make sure my husband is okay with this." I felt as if she was respecting the headspace I was in and taking how I would view it into consideration, and I have female friends that I have done the same with, after confirming with her. So it wasn't a big deal at the time and told her to enjoy herself, asked she give me some details about when/where they were meeting when she was able, and I sent her money so she didn't stress about that, and to imply to him that he isn't paying for my wife's food. I never received any information about when/where they would be going and assumed by dinner it meant anywhere from 7 to 8. I called her at 8 and asked if they were still going to eat. She said, "Yeah, I'm on my way to meet him now," and I replied with, "Oh cool, where are you guys gonna eat?" At this point I felt secure with everything and wasn't suspicious, so I asked this out of genuine curiosity. She then replied in a very defensive tone and asked why I was questioning her about this, and angrily said, "Buffalo Wild Wings, we're going to be Dubs, and I'll call you when I leave. I love you, bye." This didn't sit well with how defensive she got when I was simply asking for the reassurance we agreed to before doing this, so I checked her location, which led to an apartment complex. At 10:15 p.m. she calls and said they had a good conversation about life and she left. I took it to the chin and realized I wasn't in the right headspace to have that convo without it turning ugly, so I dropped it overnight. The next morning she calls me and just casually starts talking about her day and plans she was excited about. I addressed the location issue and said, "I'm not trying to accuse you of anything, I'm just wanting transparency. Did you guys happen to eat at his apartment last night? Your location showed you there for a bit," and again responded defensively with, "I'm tired of being questioned and accused all the time," and I cut the conversation off there because nothing productive was going to come from that. Later that evening I decided I either could trust what she's telling me is true and put it behind me and move on, or I needed to leave right then and there. I chose option A, and the next week our communication was right back to normal, so I was able to pacify it. I came home after that rotation and he told me he was in love with me and tried to kiss me, but I shut it down and told him I didn't appreciate him trying to betray my marriage like that, and I have blocked him from Snapchat. They only communicated through Snap, which isn't out of the ordinary for her to communicate with anyone primarily through Snap. At that time I had just gotten home from a month-and-a-half long rotation and trusted her word and said thank you for being honest. But these are things I deserve to know about when they happen. She said she knew how hard of a time I was having mentally and didn't want to add anything on top of me. Which I cannot lie here, I was having a really tough time and was not myself in any way, extreme paranoia, suicidal, manic, etc., so I genuinely thought, what would I have done? I would have probably waited to deliver that news in person, so after that realization I accepted it, told her thank you for not continuing to hide it, this is an amnesty period, if there's anything else I should know please tell me now. She said that was everything and she was sorry for putting me in the situation. Fast forward to a couple months later, I moved up in my job with the company and was able to afford my wife the opportunity to quit her job and focus on school and move out to TX with me, and she was excited and eager to do it. All felt right in the world. Until one day I'm on my way home to our house and she had slipped and mentioned something about that night that didn't match up with what she had previously said about the details. She had mistakenly said something about the restaurant, but it was the wrong restaurant, and all of a sudden all of my panic was back at the forefront of my mind, and I called her on the discrepancy and addressed my concerns again about the location. She finally came clean and said, "Well, while we're here, I didn't want to tell you because I was scared of how you would react given the mental crisis you were dealing with, but we never went to eat. He got hung up at work, so we met at a gas station when he got off and I followed him to his apartment where he was going to just change after work and then we would go eat. He then invited me up to the apartment while he got ready, so I wasn't in my car waiting. When we got to his apartment he tried to go in for a kiss. After we hung out for a bit I shut him down and said I gotta go and ran out of the app to my car." Me in shock. I think something in me just kinda broke that day, ick. But I responded with, "I know that wasn't easy to admit and I appreciate it, but I need to know right now, what else do I not know?" She has sworn to this day nothing else took place. Now here at present day I own my own company, very successful for my age, and the talks of kids and buying a house together are taking place, and I feel like I'm not able to fully commit to continuing down this path with her because I can't get the thought of there being something else I don't know coming up randomly and wrecking me completely. So my very long-winded question is, do I leave her because I'm rocky on if I'll be able to fully trust her again? Or do I fully commit and take the plunge into making irreversible decisions to pursue a future together because things have been great between us for a while and it's just us in TX, no distractions, friends, family, etc. Any insight, advice, or telling me that I'm the problem are absolutely welcomed. If I'm the problem here, I would love to know, and to anyone that read through this entirely and has insight, just know I really appreciate you and needed you to read this. Thanks in advance for listening to my long-winded craziness, guys. Update: man, you guys are awesome, even the ones giving me the tough love, lol. Work has been insane, but I've been able to read through most of these comments but haven't been able to hold the conversation like I'd like to, but I have decided it's time for me to get in front of a lawyer and talk options. I have an appointment with one in a few days and I'm going to protect as much as I can while trying to remain fair in the outcome. This was by far way more of an eye-opener than I expected to get out of making this post, and I cannot thank all of you enough. I'll do my best to start responding to the comments I can.